Welcome to the ATP Project. Here with your hosts, Steve and Jeff. G'day, mate.
How are you, mate?
Good.
I'm hungry.
Well, calorie. It's interesting. It's very poignant, Steve. Nice segue. We're talking about calorie restricted diets, and this is the age-old, VLCD. This is the less that you put in, the more weight that you lose. And we're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the pros and the cons, where it works, where it doesn't, rebound, weight gain, reverse dieting, what it means for your pros, but more importantly, what it means for everybody.
Yep.
And obviously there is a consensus for weight loss. If you want to lose weight, you need to exercise more and eat less.
Yes.
And that is, for the most part, true. Yeah. But there's sticky wicket, Steve. There's a few things in there that don't quite add up.
It doesn't. I mean, the great thing is that imagine, like, I remember when I was studying nutrition, many, many years ago in the 90s, and we were just told, you want to lose weight, just tell them to eat less. And it's like, oh, okay, that's it. That's that lesson over with. And I'll just tell people to eat less. And you soon realise that when you tell people to eat less, they don't.
Oh.
And everybody, I think 99.9% of the population would know that if you eat less, you'll lose weight. So why is there 1/3 of people that are overweight or obese in this country?
Sure.
2/3 actually. So 2/3 of people are overweight or obese in this country. So, I mean, it doesn't work.
Well, can I throw a few things at you,
Sure.
Steve? And you just tell me. And again, I appreciate you've got a lot of papers out in front of your desk here.
It's nuts, isn't it?
So, I mean, the nice thing is that, I'd assume that most of these papers are relatively recent.
Yeah, they are.
And we're constantly, the science is catching up, if you like, and we're learning more and more and more, which is why the science has never settled. It needs to constantly be, obviously, and again, we say this all the time, is that something might be established as a truth, but new research might come in and shed light where that may be partially true or sometimes true or completely false, but we've made a wrong assumption, right? So this is why I love the constant refining and the constant probing and the constant, looking into what's really going on. So, Steve, quite a few things going on here as far as restricting calories are concerned. You've got, old habits which are difficult to break. You've got your stomach, your firmicutes and your bacteroidetes, and you're craving certain foods as well too, which makes it difficult.
Yep.
You've got hormone issues. You've got environmental issues. You've got not all calories are calories as well too.
Correct.
And that's a really big one. And we bang on about that, which is why we always say make it fit your macros, not if it fits your macros. If you want to really get down into that nitty gritty. But there's so many other things that people need to take into consideration of why, for the most part, just restricting calories is not, it's part of it, but it's not the be and end all.
Yeah, and I follow social media like a lot of people and a lot of the health experts, and they say, oh, if you could just cut 20% of your calories, you'll lose this much weight in this many weeks, and that's all great. But when you get out into the real world, and when I was in practice telling people to lose weight, and that was one of the most common things that people come in for, is people have been told that already. They know that if they eat less, so they just struggle to do it.
But Steve, I look at the podcast that we did on artificial sweeteners.
Yeah.
So if people are sucking down 0 calorie, diet cordial and soft drinks, that actually can have a negative impact on your waistline. In fact, we've proven that categorically, right? So, not for everyone, but for a large section of the population. And that would be something that most people wouldn't look at, because if they're just looking at the macronutrients, if they're just counting calories, they would not take into consideration that part of the equation. They'd just be like, why is this not working?
Oh, I remember 20 years ago when sucralose made its sort of debut in my world, probably 25 years ago now. Sucralose, what is it? Oh, it's a sweetener. It tastes sweet, tastes good. You've got no calories, so it can't put on weight. But now we know, very recent studies, that there was a study done, now off memory from last week, 12 weeks intervention with sucralose, 1.85 kilogram weight gain.
Yeah.
That and saccharin. Saccharin was slightly less. It was 1 point something. But it put on weight. And then now we know the mechanisms is that it's insulin resistance. Now, insulin resistance means that your body has to make more insulin to deal with what's going on. So we observed a couple of years ago that you take a sweetener and insulin levels increase. And people go, that's ridiculous, because if insulin goes up, that means that sugar must go down. But it doesn't, because it forms insulin resistance. Yeah. And so all this is really unfolding before us.
And Steve, just to digress a little bit, I guess, is that we're getting a lot of people asking us, because there's more information out there than ever before. I mean, I can't remember what it was on YouTube, but the amount of video hours that are uploaded even every day is just ridiculous, right? I mean, you've got social media, you've got influencers. You would think that as a society that we would be smarter, that we would be more, have better understanding of diet, nutrition, exercise, and all those sorts of things. Yet, if you look at the population, we continue to get fatter.
We are getting fatter.
We're dying of preventable diseases more and more. So therefore, I liken this, and I've mentioned this a few times, and if you haven't watched it, go and watch Idiocracy, because it seems that as we go further into the future, that people are becoming more misinformed. And this is why we say question everything. Do not accept what anybody says, including us. Like, just look into it. And this is where, you know, advice, coaches, personal trainers, nutritionists and dietitians, and one's worth their salt, because it's like anything, like doctors, there are good ones and there are bad ones. Sure. Same thing with this as well too. But this is where we're looking into helping people, Steve, by creating systems and information and structures, you know, to be able to help people to eat well, to train well. And I'm really looking forward to this initiative, which we're going to be sort of looking at towards the second half of this year. But obviously the voice of reason in this podcast is to try and set the record straight with the misinformation that's out there, Steve. So, mate, what do you reckon?
Oh, absolutely. And the good thing about the information here is there's somewhere the science has never settled, and we're actually taking a bit of a snapshot. And there's one big topic in calorie restriction.
So you're saying that the world could be flat? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, does everyone know? You know, everyone says the world's flat and that. Did you know how they discovered that the world wasn't flat?
No.
The Greeks? Oh, they built two towers, and I don't know if this will make the podcast guide, if it's interesting or not, but you build two towers identically the same 1,000 miles apart, let's say.
Right.
It was 500 or something. And when you built the tower pointing straight to the sun, right?
Right.
And so when, at that particular time, let's call it midday, if the Earth was flat and you built these two towers identically the same, both pointing in the same direction, then there'd be no shadow on both of them, right?
Right.
But if the world was round, there would be a shadow on one of them. And that's how they knew the Earth was round. And via calculations, they worked out it was about 7,000 miles or miles round. And we were pretty accurate. That was the old Greeks.
Wow.
So that's how they knew that the Earth wasn't round. They built these little two towers, and so there was a shadow on one of them. So, as I said, the science is always changing.
Sounds like NASA made up that one.
Yeah, they made it. It's funny, but anyone can repeat that experiment. This is what the interesting thing. But with calorie restriction is, when I was taught about calorie restriction, is that it's like, oh, just get them to eat less. And then you start to work out these nuances, because, you know, there's, as I said, 1/3 of people are obese and 1/3 are overweight, and they haven't figured this out yet. So I don't know, it can't be that easy, and it's not that easy. And we know that with calorie restriction is people get hungry, and then they go and, quote, break their diet. They'll have a moment of weakness. They'll be on the way home. They'll be starving. They'll stop in and get Maccas. They'll because food's everywhere these days. Sure. It's not like, you got to remember, calorie restriction is a new idea, because, you know, 100 years ago, the turn of the century, everyone was on a calorie kind of restricted diet because they walked everywhere and they did manual labour, and their food wasn't as, you know, refined and all this sort of stuff. So calorie restriction is a very new concept to us humans.
And the funny thing is, I guess, if you look at it in the human history going back 5,000 years with you know, Chinese recorded history, the interesting thing is that 1883. I'm watching this cool series at the moment on Paramount, and it's talking about this bunch of German pilgrims that came to America and were traveling from Texas up to Oregon, right? And it just shows, man, how hard life was, and, you know, like they're effectively already starting to starve on the trip, and you know, they've got all these heads of cattle and they have to kill them and skin them, and, you know. Oh, man, I'm telling you, man, and now you jump into your car and you drive 5 kilometres, you'll be hit with probably, you know, 5, 6 different fast food joints that are all appealing to our base senses. And you've got to think the propaganda war that's out there. What I mean by that is the advertising war that's on, because they want to show you images that stimulate your hunger. You've got, I mean, we crave fats and sugars naturally, Steve, because these are the sorts of things that we used to need to stay alive. And if you could find them, you're like, gold, right?
Honey.
Like that's,
wow.
Yeah, that's really important. Whereas now it's on tap, it's everywhere, and so no wonder, even though we've got the knowledge that we've got, we're still losing out because of the base desires that you like that we've got, and these companies are cashing in on them.
Oh, you could easily stop and get a Mars bar and a can of Coke.
Yeah.
Very commonly at any service station, any time of the day and night. And as you said, drive 5 kilometres, there'll be at least 5 of those outlets, not to mention all the other ones. So you can easily get calories.
Yep.
And again, it's a new concept. So this calorie restriction thing is an idea that was started back pre-World War II. Now, we'll go back to Japan, Okinawa. And what they found then, but those people there and there,
you're talking in blue zone.
They're one of the blue zones, but they're not anymore. But they were. Is
that because of the introduction of the US naval base?
Yeah, and
or Air Force base, I forget what it was. Yeah, I think it's naval. Anyway.
And food. I mean, you know, I don't know about
the westernisation of
I'd imagine
Asia.
There may be a Macca's there now. I don't know.
I bet you there would be.
I wouldn't. You know, someone's going to fact you. But there's plenty of food everywhere because you've got chips and all that sort of thing. And now, of course, we know that there's food everywhere. So these people used to have a calorie restricted diet, but they'd have mainly fish and green vegetables were their staples.
Right.
And they would live quite long, and they also had very low rates of disease. You know, they would live. There'd be more century makers, we'll call them centurions, as the Japanese mainland. So population matched. So what they discovered was that these people were having a slightly about 15% calorie restriction in their overall eating compared to what they were doing in activity. So that was like one of the calorie restriction was thought to maybe extend lifespan.
Well, Linus Paul. So vitamin C dude.
Yep, vitamin C.
He had a very, very low calorie diet.
Yes.
Mind you, he looked emancipated. I don't know.
Yeah.
Immaculate. What's the word I'm looking for, Steve?
Starved.
Yes.
Yeah, he did look starved. He looked very.
But having said that, he lived into his 90s, didn't he?
Sure. Yeah.
And there seems to be something with that as well too. Again, we've spoken about fasting and the body's ability to be able to repair broken strands of DNA basically, when you're not eating. So, and Steve, I am fascinated. I am going to work with you on creating the perfect, min-max, absolute best restriction, best diet. What is, from a calorific point of view, and again, I say this knowing that not all calories are the same. We know resistant starches are different. We know that, food that's high in fiber. We know the polyphenols in foods. I mean, all these things that the macronutrients, proteins, carbohydrates, and fats do not take into consideration, which is why calories are not equal. And and I know this sounds, for people who are dieting, and it's the same thing, even with non-nutritive sweeteners. Some are a hell of a lot better than others. The natural ones, again, and we believe that nature knows best, are good for you.
They're literally good for you.
Literally good for you. So like stevia, I was blown away, Steve, when we did that podcast, and just how good a non-nutritive natural stevia sweetener was at one end of the scale. Sugar kind of in the middle, in moderation, not bad, not terrible, not great, but I mean in moderation,
in
fine.
Small amounts,
And then you've got your non-nutritive ACE K and other ones, which are literally carcinogenic, right? So I mean, like what a broad spectrum that you can look at. But so not all calories are the same. But in terms of calories, is there an equation that people should use of how many calories a day they should eat?
Not an equation, but there is a simple measurement you can do to monitor how many calories you're eating.
All right.
And that takes into account all those factors.
Okay.
It's the scales.
Right.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, again,
there's a few little asterisks to that.
Because always we're how would you say, a little bit. As you can see, I'm getting a bit animated about BMI. We know that you've got mesomorph, endomorph, ectomorph, male, female, age. So you've got different hormone profiles. Your growth hormone halves about every 10 years. So there's a few things at play here. Once women go through that change of life, I mean, like there's so many. This is why one size doesn't fit all, but a baseline to work from is a great place. And the 80-20 rule is, and this is where, again, if you want to try and help as many people as you can, you have to create a framework and then recognise that if it's not working for you, that there may be something else you need to take into consideration. And this is part of the program that we're developing right now, Steve, which I'm super excited about, right? That we're going to try and help as many people as we possibly can, create a community where if people fall outside of, if you like, the 80%, which again, 20% of people do, then there's a framework and a way to be able to help them. But Steve-O.
Yeah.
This episode is proudly brought to you by No Way Hot Chocolate.
Who doesn't love that product?
Have you ever watched that movie, Evil Dead 3? It's one of my favourites.
Oh, yeah.
There's a scene in there where he boils this kettle and he goes, you want some hot chocolate, do you? And he pours it down his throat to kill the bad thing that's inside.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So whenever I say that, I kind of always feel like...
Should we be relating one of our products to killing someone on Evil Dead 3 or not? Do you think it's good marketing for you? Should work, wouldn't it?
I don't know. People might remember it. But look, at the end of the day, the No Way Hot Chocolate, we're coming into the colder weather here in the Southern Hemisphere, Steve-O. People are always looking for unique ways to get their protein, their collagen in. This one's combined with a bit of magnesium as well too.
Great,
and a little bit of chocolate, and it tastes great. Something nice that you can have. And again, people are looking for those little things to have after dinner as well too, or maybe mid-afternoon. A sweet treat that's good for you. Stops
you eating naughty chocolate.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect for an after dinner snack, but even afternoons.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Love it. Oh, taste.
Yeah. Well, so if you're looking for something a bit different, give the No Way Hot Chocolate a go, guys, and
All right. Beautiful stuff.
Have a good winter. So what is then the baseline of calories that people should be eating in a day?
Around about 2,500 for a man, or 2,200 for a woman.
Okay.
And that's the baseline. But that doesn't take into account like protein, the thermic effects of food.
Thermic effects of food, that's such a great... So for people who don't know the thermic effects of food, Steve, can you just quickly...
Sure, it's the energy cost for consuming calories. So when you eat calories, your basal metabolic rate goes up. Now, for protein, it goes up about 15%.
Right.
And for fats, it's almost zero.
Right.
So there's some, depending on the food you're eating. So and that's why a lot of this data, when they say, you got to eat X amount of calories, but it doesn't take that into account. So if you're having a high protein diet, you can get away with eating more.
And then it comes down to, are you eating fats and protein with no carbs? Because that's going to change the equation a little bit. And what sort of fats are you having? Are you having things like omegas and avocados and good and healthy fats, or are you having just straight animal fat, or are you having trans fats?
Yes.
And this is where people get sort of bogged down in the detail. Now I appreciate, Steve, that we want to keep those basic philosophical ATP, nature knows best, going through first. The less processed it is, the fresher it is, the in season, all those, that's what we're trying to do. So I guess when we look at sort of creating this, penultimate sort of strategy around training, exercise, nutrition, supplementation, that it's a broad stroke and that there's nuances within there. So 2,500 calories for a male.
Yeah.
Now, but what happens if you've got an ectomorph, and what happens if you've got like a mesomorph? What if you've got and again, I know we're trying to equalize everything, so some are more sedentary. What about a 60-year-old male versus an 18-year-old male?
Yeah, but it's completely different. It's got to change dramatically.
Yeah.
And you got to also activity, how much activity you're doing. And you got to remember that let's say you're doing, and I'll blow this out to, which most people won't do this, but let's say you're exercising for an hour a day. Okay, we'll take, which is pretty rare, but let's say you are.
It would be.
Yeah. Then that's still only 5% of your day.
Yep.
So it's actually still not a long time compared to what you're doing in the rest of your day. So the most of your calories burnt are burnt while you're doing literally nothing.
Yep.
You're not active doing exercise. A lot of people will focus on, I do half an hour of running a day. Well, that's only about 2% of your day.
Yeah.
And that's like great, and that's really good for you. But you've got to consider the other 98% of the day. So that's when thermic effects of food comes in, your basal metabolism, your thyroid hormone levels, and all these sorts of things. And they will change depending on your environment, your gut microbiome as well.
It's funny, there's a movie called Wall-E that my son used to watch, the cartoon from Pixar. And it kind of showed the evolution of humanity going into a low zero or a low gravity environment where they're on a spaceship. There was, and they basically had these, hover beds that they'd get around in and everything. They just push a button and they'd get Cokes and Slurpees and, high sugar stuff. And they became really fat and overweight. They weren't exercising. Yeah. They were eating and just, living on pleasure and all the rest of it. And I kind of think it's funny, isn't it? Because the society as a general, I know that's an overstatement, but it's kind of the way that we're going. We've got Netflix now, we're just sitting on the couch. We've got entertainment. Just the other day, it's funny because I was lining up for a coffee, and we will not bow to any sponsor. Remember that from Wayne's World? Yes. No, we're not sponsored by Giraffes. Great coffee, by the way. Almond, Steve, no milk in here, so don't stress.
Good. I was stressing.
Yeah, I'll probably get hate mail now from people going, I can't believe you're using almond. You're destroying the planet.
How do you milk an almonds?
How do you milk an almond? I don't know. Someone's going to be offended about something.
Of course.
Listening to the wrong podcast.
Yes.
Will offend everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, and these guys were sitting in their truck, right? And it's funny. It's just like the heads. How many times you just heads down?
Yeah.
Not talking. Just everyone's just switching on their phones and that as well too. So, just the whole overstimulation, the whole environment in which we live in today. Food on every corner, high fructose corn syrup. Less. We're not an agrarian society anymore. We're not living in that 1883 the show that I was watching, which is just you're going through rivers and people are dying and just crazy.
Yeah.
Exercise and ploughing and all that. It's just like it's just we sit at a desk, we suck down our high fructose corn syrup. Yeah.
Imagine if you went to those people and said, what you're going to do in 150 years? Yeah. You're going to have to pay someone to go and lift heavy stuff. You're not going to get paid for lifting stuff. Well, you're going to have to pay someone to go and lift heavy stuff and then put it back down exactly where you found it. Yeah. Can you imagine telling those people that? They would look at you and go, "What are you?" Well, German. I don't speak German, but what are you talking about there? That doesn't make sense. And that's where this whole thing has changed. And from like the blue zone thing you talked about with the restricted calories, they have looked at sort of today's society, and what we know is that we are over-caloried. In at least 2/3 of us are over-caloried. So the whole movement is to say, well, let's bring the calories back to what we consider healthy.
Yep.
And normal.
So you're saying 2,500 calories for a guy and 2,200 for a girl, approximately.
It depends. Like if she's pregnant, it's more.
And do we have any statistics on typically what the Western males and Western females are consuming?
Oh, some of them. There was one study where I found that males, white males, it was showing white males in America were over 3,000.
Wow.
I know, it was ludicrous. Now they were having chips and they were having soft drinks and all this sort of stuff. It was horrendous.
So in a kilo of fat, there's 9,000 calories in a kilo of fat, right?
Yep.
So sorry, that was me. Yeah. Oh, it goes. Oh, podcast is starting. Sorry. So 3,000 calories. Wow. So 9,000 calories in a kilo of fat. So it doesn't take very long if that's being stored. It won't take you very long period of time to put on some body fat at all.
It doesn't, and to lose it is tough too.
Yeah.
To lose a kilo of fat takes like 90. Like you imagine going for a run and you burn 1,000 calories.
Yeah.
Okay. You go for a pretty long run to burn 1,000 calories. You got to do that 9 times to lose 1 kilo of fat.
And this is funny, Steve. This is where I want to use science for us, not against us. This is where we want to look at the thermic effect of food. Yep. We want to look at intermittent fasting. We want to look at the types of food that we're eating. We want to change the thermocutes. We want to obviously improve the hormone ratios, increase testosterone and growth hormone while reducing leptin and ghrelin and other things like that. Man, there is a way forward, and guys, just so you know, I've got an advisory board. Steve, Elizma, Rach White, who else we got in there? Jared Hustler as well too. I've invited a few other people. We're putting together an advisory board to create the Min-Max program, which is going to be focusing on putting all of this information together in an accessible format that you can use as a guide to demystify, to strain out the crazy theories that are out there. Now, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and this is only a foundation. You can build on it. But, Steve, I want to demystify this. I want to create a program, a straight shooting, straight talking way that people can access this information. And do you know why I'm creating it?
Well, to help people.
And to help myself.
You yourself.
But mate, 2 years of COVID, man. I mean, seriously. I mean, I've Netflixed and drank too much red wine with the rest of them, right? So I mean, I'm getting to that point with stress with work, and again, once things get out of balance, Steve, and many people are in the same boat. There's no judgment at all. I understand it completely, and so we're just there to help people. All right,
so calorie restriction. This is what the main. Let's just look at that aspect of things. Okay, so what we know is from. Do you remember the Minnesota starvation experiment?
No, I don't.
Oh, they took about 36 males.
When was this?
1945 it ended. So World War II, and they starved them. And when I say starved them, they put them on foods that they mimicked what was happening in Europe with the war in World War II. And so they literally starved them. Wow. They put them on extremely low-calorie diets. And they lost an extraordinary amount of weight. It was very well controlled.
Did they measure fat versus muscle versus fluid?
No.
Just weight?
Just weight. They didn't have any bioimpedance, things like that. So they just really lost, and they lost an extraordinary weight. So cutting calories will help you lose weight. We know from this data and many other data. But the big trick is it good for you?
Well, Steve, and again, probably premised on what I just said.
Yeah.
So you can lose a ton of weight by cutting your head off.
Yes.
It's not really what you want, right? I mean, if it's just weight at any cost, I mean, you can take some bloody parasites which can help you lose weight. You can.
There was a treatment.
You can take some, I don't know, some terrible microbes that are going to make you vomit for 72 hours, right? Dysentery is a great way to lose weight. But yeah, we're talking about, I mean, even the muscle tissue that, you know, the smooth muscles, the heart, the lungs, you know, other things like that. The more muscle tissue that you have, the higher your your resting metabolic rate is going to be. So yeah, it's the same thing as that. The devil's in the detail. Not all weight is the same.
No, and also it comes down to the individual. So these people were lean people already, and they put them on a 40 calorie restricted diet, and they suffered huge weight loss.
How many restricted?
40%. Sorry, 40%.
Okay.
So they starved them. That's the only way to describe it. And they had serious mental health problems, so it wasn't a good idea for them. Now, what about the cohort, like I mentioned, I think it was in Texas, where they ate these 3,000 calories. If you cut their calories by 500, you'd be getting somewhere to be healthy, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well,
because these people were already morbidly obese.
Yeah.
Because the study was, do obese people eat more? And this study showed that yes, they did. In this case.
Yep.
Yeah. So they do. They just simply they didn't think they did.
And that is because their microbiome has changed, and they're craving this food, right? I mean, it's like the cat. It's like the rat that basically sacrifices itself to the cat because the organisms inside it want to get eaten and spread.
Yes, that's right.
It's kind of weird. It's like this biological thing where these, you know, things take over your will. Well, I like that, you know, picture of the pig with the tape around it that my mum used to have from Weight Watchers. I ate my willpower. But I mean, it's, you know, these sorts of things are very impactful and very difficult. Yeah,
they're very difficult. So when you say cutting calories, for those people, it may be a good idea. But if you're lean and cutting too many calories, is that healthy? And the answer to that is yes and no, depending on how you do it. So there's a bit of a trick to this, because there's a lot of data, and this is on animal studies. They haven't done this on humans yet, but they've gone up to primates, okay? And they live about 24 years, chimpanzees they tested.
Did they?
Yeah.
They live for about 24 years.
About that.
Oh.
So when you calorie restrict all animals, rats and everything, they live longer. And they have less disease.
There's got to be an apex point, because zero calories, you probably...
They're dead. Yeah, they're dead in a week or whatever. But yeah, no, they did it at 20%, so which is quite significant.
Right, 20% of...
Calories, compared to what they call an ad libitum diet, which is also probably in excess.
Just eating whatever.
They provide food for them, and they just, you know, they don't restrict the food. In other words, if you're a rat, there's always rat chow there for you to eat.
Right.
So you're comparing them against someone with food there 24/7.
Mind you, the survival instincts of animals is very, very highly attuned, Steve, whereas I think our survival instincts are probably being completely warped and twisted now. So therefore, they would probably self-regulate better than humans.
Well, they didn't, because they still died quicker if they ate more.
Yeah, right.
So there was a point where they overate,
right,
and they died sooner. They didn't say what of, but it's a classic experiment. You can do it on fruit flies and everything. It's repeatable. So the $64,000 question is, does that happen in humans? Can you calorie restrict a human, and does that make them live longer? Now, it's yes.
I was going to say yes.
For the obese person.
Yep.
And what these studies, most of these studies in front of me, are what happens to humans if you calorie restrict them for an extended period of time. Now, there was a famous study called the Biosphere 2 study where they put a number of, I can't remember how many volunteers.
I remember this.
Yeah.
In the desert, wasn't it? In the plastic dome.
Yeah, dome.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
They were determining whether we could live on Mars.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they gave them a calorie restricted diet.
Right.
And they measured their parameters. Now, what we know is that there's two ways of dying, okay? There's, not natural and unnatural causes, but there's things that will take you out sooner, and then there's age-related death.
Right.
So, for example, a heart attack may not be an age-related death.
No.
I mean, we've talked about Shane Warne, 53.
Yeah.
My age. That wasn't age-related. He just died of a heart attack.
Yeah.
Now, heart attacks do increase as you age.
Sure.
But there's co-founding things in that, like smoking and
Sure.
so it's not a death due to age.
Right.
So you have to confound these things now. So with aging, you can die of just older age where you just basically expire when you're about, and that age should be around about 100.
120, I reckon, cell death. I mean, Myron Wentz proved that cell death occurs at 120 years of age.
Yeah.
In other words, the cells stop replicating pretty much,
it's called the Hayflick limit if you want to be a nerd and Google it.
Yeah.
But the Hayflick is a science, still alive actually, and he said that cells only reproduce about 50 times depending on the cell. So there is a limit. And because the telomeres just get so short.
And this is the holy grail of anti-aging and living forever, is working out how to look after your telomeres, right?
And I've got does calorie restriction extend your telomeres? And the answer is no. So, I mean, it extends.
I don't think they've found anything, honestly, Steve, that can affect telomeres positively. Have they?
No, only cancer cells extend telomeres. So cancer cells grow their own telomeres by telomerase, which is not a good thing. You don't want cancer cells, but they're the only immortal cells.
Yeah, no, that's it, right?
So
but we've got to learn from jellyfish, right? They live forever.
Oh, they live a long time.
No, they do. They basically, I think they're pretty much well immortal. That's what they reckon.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know there's a shark that lives for about a few hundred years.
Well, turtles
or tortoises.
But mind you, their metabolic rate's very slow.
And their superoxide dismutase levels are through the roof.
Right.
Which is a free radical antioxidant.
And these are the sorts of things that we can do to improve lifespan. Anyway.
Yes.
Different
reducing calories reduces free radicals.
Well, that's obviously part of it, right? So that improves the body's ability to be able to repair broken DNA.
Correct.
And fix stuff that's not well, which is going to reduce the amount of comorbidity.
Yep.
Which is where, again, coming back to this whole fasted or fasting has got some significant health benefits.
Correct. And fasting and calorie restriction, I've got some papers on that here too. And what they found was it was very, very interesting, because if you calorie restrict someone, and it depends on the calories, but let's say you're cutting out bad calories, like flour and sugar and all that sort of stuff. Yes, you will be healthier on a lower calorie diet, even if you increase your vegetables and fruits and salads, which are very low in calories anyway. So it is...
And high in fibre. I mean, and again, and also that feeling of fullness, which is more likely to help you to stay on your diet.
Exactly. So calorie restriction is really good. Now, intermittent fasting does a similar thing.
Yeah.
That reduces calories, and it reduces inflammation.
So even without trying, when you do
like fasting,
intermittent fasting, you eat less.
You do eat less. Depend on the fasting windows. So there's
what was the best?
The best was the most fasting was what they call 4-hour eating windows, where you only eat from 12.
It's pretty close to the warrior diet, right? Which I think was 1 hour a day. But
right.
Yeah, that was just crazy.
Okay.
But that's probably not practical, Steve, for the majority of people.
The simplest one is what they call 16-hour fasts, where you do it overnight. You have an early dinner and a later breakfast, and that's a pretty good sort of compromise.
It's funny because, I mean, I always get worried when I was talking to people back in the day when I was in the supplement store, how many people used to skip breakfast, and they didn't do it as intermittent fasting. They just did it because it was their metabolism wasn't kicking in. So I woke up and they weren't even hungry. Yeah. And then they'd go right through to lunch, and then they'd eat the wrong sorts of foods, and then they'd eat later and snack at night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
See, that's bad.
Yeah.
So you've got to have those limits. Now it may not be for everybody, but you got to remember
16 hours.
Yeah. And you've got.
So what does that look like? 6 o'clock?
Okay. So let's say you eat dinner at say 6 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
Then you've got. The next morning is 6 a.m, so it's 12 hours, so 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
So, you might have morning tea at work instead of a breakfast. And that's doable for some people, but it may not be. But what it also stops you doing if you stop eating at 6 is most people eat bad food after 6.
Well, and 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 look, part of the reason, Stephen, why we're working on obviously these better for you snacks, the bars that we're working on, which have got high protein, high fiber, very low sugar, is for that nighttime little snack, because the high fiber and the protein are good for you. They help create satiety. You're having something that's sweet, that tastes good. It's kind of designed to help with that. Because, I mean, again, I understand as well, too, we live in the real world. It's about making better choices rather than creating something that's unrealistic. Because you can create programs, Stephen, for people that they will adhere to for a very short period of time, but it doesn't become a lifetime change. And that's what... And again, and the other big one as well too, Steve, is people become focused on the wrong thing. Oh, I can't eat this. I'm not going to eat that. And so what are you're filling your head with things, and so therefore you want. Whereas if you replace that replacement, theory. Okay, so I'm going to be going. Okay, I'm going to be having this drink. I'm looking forward to having this and actually finding the joy in the things that you can have. And I'm really looking forward to I'm not going to drink this, or I'm not going to drink that. You know what I mean? Because then you're changing the mindset, the focus.
And it's
does that make sense?
It does, absolutely. Okay. And a lot of people need structure in their life. So a lot of people will like the fasting for 16 hours, and a lot of people use apps on their phone these days for counting calories.
Yeah, you can get an app on your phone for fasting as well too, where you put in your meals and it tells you, sort of how well you've done. It actually ranks your week. Yeah,
well, there you go.
Forget what it's called. Yeah,
I'm so behind because I just use my.
It's called a phone. It's a phone.
I left mine downstairs because I didn't want it to ring or bing while we're at a podcast.
Wow,
that might get cut out there.
That's a cheap
shot there.
Cheap shot.
That's pretty cool. So the $1 million question is, and a lot of these people are asking if calorie restriction actually keeps you young. And we know it does in animals. And one paper, this paper, and I'll just read it out to you, it's called Calorie Restriction Aging in Humans, and it says, and I'll quote, lifespan by 1.5, the clinical trials have suggested that it increases lifespan by 1 to 5 years with an improvement in health span and quality of life. That's for people with calorie restriction. That's what
so longer life and better quality. So
quality.
What metrics did they use for the restriction of calories based on the 2,500 calories for a male and reducing them by 20%?
15% in this case.
15%.
And what they did with
this based on 2,500 calories?
Yeah.
Right.
Based on each individual. So the individual itself. Okay. Like even an obese person requires more calories, but if you take their calories of what they're supposed to eat and then reduce it by 15, they will lose weight. But also what they found in this one was very interesting. As I said, they had primary and secondary aging. So the primary aging, as I said, the two types. The primary aging is it reduced things like DNA damage, as you correctly point out, reduced oxidative stress, and it reduces body core temperature and oxygen consumption and increased mitochondrial efficiency.
So the last one, it decreased
oxygen consumption because your metabolism.
So therefore, you'd be getting less free radicals.
Yeah.
Yep. So oxidative stress.
Yeah. So it reduces your basic metabolism. You get colder, and everyone thinks
you become colder.
Yeah. Physiologically colder because your metabolism just drops.
Which is interesting because again, I think you might have just been just about to say it. Is that most people base a good metabolism, you should be hot.
Oh yeah, but it depends on what you define as good. Like in a free living society where there's food everywhere, being able to burn off that excess food that you're probably going to be eating, and I'm generalising the Australian population here, we generally are overweight, then that's a good thing. But if you're trying to calorie restrict, you want your metabolism to drop with it, so as you get less free radicals and you live longer. And that's the whole theory behind it. Secondary aging, of course, is it certainly reduces insulin improves regulation of insulin sensitivity. It reduces fat, reduces inflammation, reduces cardiovascular risk disease, and that's what calorie restriction does.
Wow!
So it does, it does seem to increase. It improves your lifespan and your health span by 1 to 5 years. Now, here's the $64 million question. They haven't done this in a randomised controlled trial, which is the gold standard, because people live too long. Rats live about 3 years. You can easily do a trial on a rat for 3 years and watch which ones die. You take 100 and feed them heaps and 100 eat. But humans...
So cruel.
Yeah. Well, cruel for the people that overeat the rats because the other ones were healthy and then died.
Yeah.
But you want to die healthy. You want to actually have a healthy... want to improve your health span and then just drop off the perch.
Well, yeah. I think we want both, Steve.
We want both.
That's right. But this sounds like it gives you both. It gives you longevity and quality.
Yep. So very, very interesting. But again, it hasn't been tested in humans, because to do this properly on a human, you need about 100 years. Because you've got to take that human from infancy to death and cut their calories by 10 to 15%.
So many variables for 100 years, right?
Because we've got a cerebral cortex, which means we can think for ourselves.
Yeah.
Rats, we can, like socialism.
The government's getting rid of those, Steve.
Yeah, that's right.
Just watch the news, it'll do it for you.
Like my cat Flatface lives under a socialist regime. We tell him when he eats and how much he eats, and that's as simple as that.
Are you his chairman, Mao?
Yeah, I'm his chairman, Mao. Meow, by the way. Chairman Meow. So he doesn't go out. We only take him out to walk out the front with us.
Yeah.
So he's under socialist rule. So
that's right. I've got a dachshund, a dachshund, a miniature one.
Yes, I know.
Jawohl, you little schnell, you little schnell. It's like, get out.
I know him. Poor old biscuit. He's beautiful.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
He's going to a concentration camp.
Yeah. Well, Flatface lives in a concentration camp with us. He's locked in the backyard. Yeah, so we medicate him.
Yeah.
So we keep him under control.
You give him herbs?
Herbs, yeah.
Oh, like catnip?
We grow some catnip for him.
Does he love it?
And we give him cat's claw. Herb.
Do you?
No, we don't.
I was going to say,
we give him green lip.
Kill him
we give him New Zealand green lip muscle.
Oh yeah, for his joints.
Yeah, loves that. Yeah. So that's what you need in a controlled environment, a randomised controlled trial. You can't just say, go and report on yourself, because humans are, everyone's got their own mind. They can think and eat and do what they want for themselves. So it's very difficult to study for. But so these are all theoretical models based on shorter studies like 6 months and 12 months and 2 years. But so again, the science is evolving on this one. Does calorie restriction increase your life? We know from Okinawans, which is what they call a cohort study, which means that we can look back in time and say what they used to do, and they used to live longer. We know that, and they were healthy. But is that the factor, or is it the fact that there was no pollution there, or they didn't have McDonald's there in the 40s, or whatever it was? It could be lots of things.
Most famous Okinawan that you know, Steve?
Don't know any.
Mr. Miyagi.
Oh, was he from Okinawa?
Yeah, he's from Okinawa.
Oh, man.
Yeah, come on, man. I thought you were cool, Steve.
I thought,
Karate Kid.
Wax on,
Cobra
wax
Kai is
off.
one of my favourite, TV series on Netflix at the moment.
Really?
It's bloody awesome. Yeah, it's so good.
Absolutely amazing.
Pat Murriata passed away a few years ago, unfortunately.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Mr. Miyagi for those who don't know what it is. We have got a study here showing the benefits of intermittent fasting, and I better shoot you the paper for this one. This is publishing the effects of meal timing and frequency, calorie restriction, and fasting on cardiovascular health. An overview. So if you intermittently fast, this is what it does for your heart. Now, the resume is absolutely huge. It goes on forever. But so this is the benefits. Now, I'm picking on heart disease because that's the biggest killer.
Right.
So if you can sort of get rid of that out of your life, you're going to live a bit longer.
Well, number one cause of death in the West is heart disease.
Yes.
So is that typically come in the form of what, Steve? Heart attacks?
Atherosclerosis, which is when the arteries that are feeding the heart, like you see a heart and it's shaped like not a heart, but
close off.
And it's got these arteries going off and they get blocked up. And then, of course, you get a clot coming from somewhere, or eventually it just blocks off enough where it starves this part of the heart. And if this part of the heart's a big part and an important part, you die. If you don't, you go to hospital and you get what's called a stent. Which goes in there and opens it up again. And that's a great prevention too. Like you can get a coronary scan and, you've got 80% closure. We'll go in there and we'll stent it to prevent heart disease. Now, what the doctors don't do, unfortunately, is they don't ask, why is that blocking up? And we know that calorie restriction can help open up those arteries. So this is what intermittent fasting does. It reduces insulin resistance, reduces blood triglycerides, reduces inflammation, reduces blood pressure, reduces oxidative stress, reduces the risk of the big C, increased cellular repair, increased fat burning, increased metabolic rate, increased memory and cognition, and reduced autoimmune diseases.
Wow.
I mean, that's
pretty good.
That's pretty good.
I'd buy that in a pill.
You buy that. So
Can I buy that in a pill, Steve?
No. Well, I'm going to talk about pills later.
Okay.
I've got some pills for you.
Okay.
I've got some cheats.
Yeah.
We're going to cheat later, by the way.
Oh, man, I love cheating.
On intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
So that is an interesting... That's an interesting paper, which I love. Now, the other factor is about calorie restriction. Is I'm assuming people are watching, but they're not all watching.
Most
if
people
you think
don't watch
about how much,
if you're watching, You're one of the cool kids.
You are.
Yep.
So if you're
just
listening,
don't forget to push my button down here.
Exactly, the like button. That's it.
Just be careful where you're clicking, Steve.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Careful where you're clicking down there.
Yeah.
So if you think about your basal metabolic rate and the exercise you're doing, it's let's say so for the listeners, that's 3,000 calories. So to calorie restrict, you need to eat 2,500. Well, let's say you can't do that. So if you exercise a bit more...
You won't do that.
Yeah, you won't do that.
Okay.
You can exercise a bit more and up that calories burnt so you can eat more. So there's a little bit of a cheat there.
Yeah, I had a friend that used to do that actually.
Yeah. Yep. Now I think you should eat well and exercise together.
Oh well, I mean, let's make a double-edged sword, right? Let's cut both ways.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
So exercise, with regards to calorie restriction, the best ones for longevity here are interesting. It says endurance exercise, including high-intensity training to improve cardiorespiratory fitness, promotes longevity and slows down aging. So it actually physiologically reverses aging. Strength training should be added to slow down the loss of muscle mass associated with the aging of disease.
Yeah.
So exercise is another little key to this. I know we're talking about calorie restriction, but calorie restriction can be eating the same diet and exercising more, if that makes sense.
And it's interesting that we know that weight-bearing exercise has a huge impact, obviously, on the cardiovascular, and it's obviously good for the muscles, which helps with hormones and insulin and all the rest of it. But it's cardio that specifically said that it actually improved longevity.
It does, and this is from a review paper saying which type of exercise keeps you young.
Okay.
Nice title.
And what was number one?
Of cardiovascular exercise that's long term with high intensity exercise. But they
so a combination of both.
Yeah.
So steady state and HIIT.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you might go out for a run one Sunday morning for a long period of time, and then Monday morning you haven't got time for work, so you do short sprints at the pool, or something. So you match it up. You do both, and of course weights is recommended for muscular health, but for longevity, it's cardiovascular fitness is the best. So very interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting.
So I mean, calorie restriction also extends the quality of your life too, particularly two parts of the body: fragility, and there's a study published here that says that if you restrict calories, and I'll read the title of the paper, it says calorie restriction may help delay the onset of frailty and support frailty management. So that sort of says it all. It was a mini review paper, and that paper suggested if you reduce your calories or keep them below your exercise activity, you are going to be less frail as you get old. Now, frailty is that, I've got sore this, I've got,
weak bones and
all that sort of crap.
Poor muscle tone and no strength and
correct.
Low energy.
So calorie restriction in that way is a good way too. Yeah. It's also good for your brain too. So there's a paper here, and I'll read the title. Sorry for the long-winded title thing. The title of this paper is, as I scamper through it, there it is. Title of the paper says, The Effects of Calorie Restriction on the Agnostic and Integrative Hallmarks of Aging. And they talked about the brain here. And so what they did was it actually helps with your brain as well. So calorie restriction is extremely good for your brain. And it does that by reducing free radical stress, glycation, which stuffs up your brain, because type 3 diabetes, which interested a few people. Type 3 diabetes is like insulin resistance in the brain, and it's one of the leading causes of Alzheimer's. And so it's called type 3 diabetes.
Yeah, I only learned about that last week, Steve, when you were talking about it. So.
I know, I've sort of mentioned it without explaining it, but it's a really interesting one because it's something that a lot of people, especially in the office, they would, what's type 3 diabetes? Because they know 1 and 2, and now there's 3. So there's 4 types of diabetes, just for those who don't know.
What's the 4th type?
Oh, the pregnancy-induced one.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Or diabetes insipidus.
And everyone can get that, Steve.
Yep. Are you ready to cheat for calorie restriction?
Yes.
Good. Okay. This is published in a critical review, and this title will give it away. But it says, ketone bodies mimic the lifespan extending properties of calorie restriction.
There you go. Ketogenic diets, right?
Absolutely.
So it's funny, they keep coming back and around, don't they?
Absolutely. And it says, and I'll just read a quote from it. It says, an effective method of combating free radical damage occurs through the metabolism of ketone bodies, ketones being the characteristic physiological change brought about by calorie restriction from fruit flies to primates.
Well, there you go.
So ketone, the reason why, because lower calories means you burn fat.
Yep.
Ketones are produced, and they are believing that's the key mechanism by which you reduce your aging. That's what this paper is suggesting. It's one of them anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's really like, so, you can drink ketones, you can...
and your body cannot store body fat.
No.
When you have insulin.
Yeah.
When you don't have it, like you need insulin to store body fat.
You do.
If
that's
insulin
right.
is not present in the body, it can do it. But how does it do it, Steve?
Well, insulin does a few things. It increases glucose for transporters to put sugar into the cells.
Yep.
And that's fine until the sugar fills up in the cells and your glycogen levels are full.
Yep. So after you've depleted, great time to take sugar, because then you can fill up the cells, the muscle cells, and fuel them.
Yeah, but let's say,
glycogen.
let's say, and this is why fat loss is better for exercise first in the morning, but let's say you exercise straight after work at 5 p.m. and you go home and eat a meal at 6 p.m. Just normal, rice, potatoes, whatever it is, and then you do absolutely physically nothing, and you might have a dessert, whatever that is, or maybe not, but then you go to sleep. And you wake up, physically do nothing, and you eat breakfast. You are going to fill up your glycogen stores from dinner, and then the breakfast, if you have some carbohydrates with that, whatever that be, bit of toast or cereal or whatever, then that sugar goes into the bloodstream, and the liver then takes over and says, hey, no more room for glycogen. We're going to detoxify that sugar, and we're going to turn it into fat. And and so that gets the sugar out of the cells, out of the bloodstream, because it can't stay in the bloodstream, can't be stored there, and turns it into fat to store later.
Glyconeogenesis. The brain uses up a significant amount of energy, if you like. So
about 20% at rest.
Right, at rest.
Yeah.
But so obviously, again, that's part of the. But if you're overloading that, it's got to convert it to fat.
Correct. And so and a lot of people, and this is for people who exercise every afternoon. They exercising in the morning means you've starved yourself for about 8-10 hours, so you've got very little. You've got some glycogen there, but then you go and exercise and you burn it off, and you can actually tap into your fat stores. Yeah. So that's why it's good to exercise first thing in the morning. Look, if you had your way, you could exercise first thing in the morning and the afternoon. You could do your morning cardio and afternoon weights, and that's what when we talk about the
ultimate plan.
The ultimate plan. Yeah. I mean, everyone's going to be sitting and listening to this, going, "Oh, stuff that! I don't want to go to the gym twice a day." Well, you don't have to. You can go for a walk.
Yeah, that's right.
You can go to the gym once a day and go to the pools or run or swim or whatever. You got to remember, it doesn't have to be a lot of exercise.
No, that's right. Quality over quantity, and I think this is the thing as well too, that Steve min-maxing, as I like to call it, is what it's all about. People are busy, and again, we've got to take people from a 0 to a 1. Yeah. You thought I was going to say hero.
I was going to think you're going to say hero.
No, we've got to take people from 0 to 1. Yeah. So because a lot of people that are going to gym, they're training, they're focused, they're single. They've got motivation to get fit, right? They are like, they're looking for a mate, and they're like, priorities for me is looking fit so I can get, a brother with the money to be my man. Yes. So, it's one of those things, right?
A brother with the money.
You're not seeing that one. It's like,
Oh, no, what is that one?
That's about the 5 I'm blowing. Just got a fine woman sitting in your row.
Oh,
you remember that one?
I've heard of it. What's that from?
Bust a move, man. Bust a move. Come on, brother. Move. So and that's strong motivation, right?
Yeah, it is.
But if that motivation is not so strong, and those guys are all guys and girls are all sort of I'd call 8 and above. So like they are motivated, they are eating well, they are and then you've got your freaks that are just genuinely really focused on health, and and that's great as well too. But for all those sort of other people, we need to create that system and that structure and that support that actually helps them to demystify it. They know exactly what they need to do. It's all served up for them, and boom, away you go.
Exactly.
So anyway,
can we still cheat? We're still cheating.
Let's do it.
Let's cheat. Okay, what you can do is you can have a high protein diet, because in this paper, that's one of the reasons, but there's another little nifty reason. This is the paper, a high protein calorie restricted diet alters the gut microbiome in obesity.
Well, there's the other thing as well too, Steve. You're getting satiety by filling up on protein, which means you're less inclined to be eating sugars and other things that are going to put on body fat as well. So there's actually probably 3 things there. And so changing microbiome, which get rid of the Thermic, and that's going to help obviously with regards to what you eat longer term, and also how your body then processes what you've just consumed. The thermic effects of food,
about 15% for protein.
And then obviously replacement therapy, if you like, or replacement, which is not eating chocolate bar, but being filled and not filling up on good quality food that's going to support muscle tissue and other things like that, which also then increase resting metabolic rate.
Correct.
You've got more muscle
Thermic
tissue.
effect
So there's probably
and muscle,
and muscle, and muscle. So there's actually probably 4 things there. And again, this is by focusing on, I'm going to have a beautiful, lean steak. Not
good for your gut microbiome.
Wow.
I mean, it increases, to be more specific, Akkermansia and bifidobacteria.
Akkermansia.
Yeah, we love Akkermansia. And it depletes Prevotella, which is associated with cardiovascular disease. That's not a good one.
Yeah.
It's not a good one in high amounts. It's in everyone, so don't panic if it comes up in your stool test. But increasing Akkermansia. Akkermansia is in all the athletes.
Yep.
Think of
carbon-based, loves the carbon, so it feeds on the mucus effectively that you create when you're training, and improves. It changes your desires for the foods that you want to eat. It
does.
Improves. Doesn't it improve cardiovascular?
It does
as well too, Steve.
Very much so.
Effectively improves your ability to utilize oxygen.
It's a good one. And bifidobacteria is anti-inflammatory in the gut. It is a firmicute, but it's not a bad one.
And this is the thing. We do need a ratio of firmicutes and bacteroidetes. We talk about the ratio, though, that's important. Most people have got way too many of one type, the bad type. Way too many. Were you still cheating? You want to cheat some more? Let's go.
All right. There are supplements you can take now.
Okay.
And drugs.
Yeah.
That are calorie restricted mimetics.
Now, I know metformin.
Yes, that's one.
Yeah, that's a drug.
Yes.
Anyway, go on.
Metformin's also it's also found in French ilac, so it's a herb really.
French what?
Ilac, which is a herb, but it's also found in goat's rue. So it's
what?
Goat's rue. R-U-E. Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, it's a herb.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a herb used many years ago when you, and this is going to be gross.
I thought you were going to say it's like kangaroo.
No, when you piss on an ant's nest and the ants are attracted to your piss, you need goat sugar.
Yeah.
Because
you got high sugar in your urine. Yeah.
So they took metformin.
Is that where they come up with pissant?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
So, but there's some well tested ones, and there's ones that you may have heard of, like turmeric is a good one.
Yeah, I love turmeric.
Numerous studies on that one, but there's 4 that are really, really well tested, and there's 3 that are there's 3. They're all natural agents really, but the first one is salicylic acid, which is like aspirin, but it's from white willow bark.
Yeah, white willow bark. I used to use white willow bark back in the day. I don't know if we're still allowed to use it. Helped to thin out the blood, but that used to improve the half-life of caffeine.
Yeah, it would. Because it's metabolised down the 3A4 pathway.
Yep.
Same pathway. Hydroxycitric acid. Remember that one that we used to...
HCA?
Yep. But also resveratrol.
Right, okay. That's the on your grapes.
Yep.
But it's also a very powerful antioxidant, correct?
Yep, and spermidin, which is from, you've got to be careful how you say that. Don't giggle. It's called spermidin.
Spermidin.
Yeah. Which is from in nuts and soya and that sort of stuff. So make sure you, of course, now it's getting worse, isn't it? It's found in nuts. Spermicin is found in nuts. I don't know. That's the truth. We can't edit that out, can we?
Oh, no, geez. Steve, you'd like to though, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
No, we're leaving that in, Steve-o.
So
and that's fine.
Yep. Look, other good ones. Let's quickly change topic. Berberine.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Disgusting, but good.
Worst tasting stuff on the planet. Caffeic acid is good. Very good.
Caffeic acid, what's that from?
Well, it's in certain supplements that we can't talk about.
No, but what
coffee?
Coffee.
Yep.
I was going to say, it sounds like it's from coffee, right?
Yep.
Green coffee, the highest...
The highest form is eucalyptus bark, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
That would taste horrible.
Yeah. Don't
make a supplement out of that one.
No, don't.
No,
catechin, that's found in all your teas and red wines.
Green tea is very high catechin.
Same with epicatechin.
That's green tea.
Yep, and epigallocatechin gallate,
which is green tea as well.
Yeah. So all those things. So really
you've got to be careful with your thyroid that you don't overconsume that, right?
Correct. Yeah. So metformin, as we talked about, NAD plus, which is NADH.
NAD.
Nicotinamide adenosine dinucleotide hydrogen.
Yeah,
that's his name.
I was going to say that.
I know. It's active form of B3.
Okay. Yep.
So that's a good one too. Quercetin is also in there too. So they're your cheating things.
Quercetin's very good for you. A lot of people are taking quercetin at the moment. Good for the immune system too.
Very good for that side of things.
We're not mentioning. No.
Anti-inflammatory.
Yes.
I was going to say it's other things.
Not allowed to say anything.
No.
Mortality,
comorbidities.
No.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's go watch the video star.
Yes.
No, you can't say that,
No,
Steve.
we can't. But look, there's a wide range of cheats if you want. Like, okay, calorie restrict, you know. But if you really want to calorie restrict, the best way to do it is to cut out the crap in your diet. Like, instead of having your soft drink water. I mean, no, it's too simple.
Things like, Steve, as you said, the thermic effects of food. Protein is also filling. Healthy fats as well too, also very filling. Just eliminate sugars when you're eating that. Sugars really post-training, that's a good time to take it, or around, fibre is the other one as well too. Get plenty of fibre and some green leafy vegetables, get all the vitamins and minerals and what have you. But if you can fill up on your fibres, especially roughage and stuff like that, where the body has to work relatively hard to break it down as well, gives you that feeling of fullness, but also at the same time, is going to stop you. It's a double-edged. It's a significantly better choice.
So a nice filling breakfast could be that omelette with lots of green leafy stuff in there.
Spinach leaves, go for your mushrooms.
Garlic if you want.
Garlic's excellent for your gut health, which again,
not good for your social life.
No. But
I mean, what's more
that's where you
important?
can maybe have a peppermint oil or something that you drop in, Steve, which also a lot of people use first thing in the morning.
They do use that first thing in the morning.
Don't want to go to jail, so not mentioning any brand names.
No.
Nothing.
So I could say so, but so instead of having your sandwich or salad wrap for lunch, just have salad. Get rid of the wrap thing, and even bump up the chicken.
Exactly right.
Macadamia's in there, healthy fats, all that stuff. For dinner, you might have potatoes, but try and get the charisma potatoes,
which are 25%
lower carbohydrate.
Lower,
So there's subtle changes you can do. Remember, you're only after a 10-15% change.
Here and there a little bit.
And it just gives you more resistant starch.
And the thing is as well too, with regards to the calorie restriction, if you focus on the things that you can eat, the things you can't, don't set the bar too high. I mean, again, I was having a chat with Rach White the other day about chickpea, and she's like, "Oh, that's so funny," because I mean, again, she understands.
She probably eats a lot of it.
Well, your high-end competitors are eating, your 8 meals plus a day, and that. They do become creatures of habits, and it's about what's practical. So I appreciate for short periods of time they do the chickpea, right? But we don't advocate the chickpea, which is just chicken and broccoli, which is what a lot of them eat, right? And that's it. But it's boring, and you can't maintain for the average person. You can't maintain that.
You can't. And that's why
right? I mean, food is such one of the biggest pleasures that we've got in life.
It's one of them. And the thing is, with like those calorie restricted apps that we talked about before, the only problem with them is you can still eat bad food on those.
That's if it fits your macros. That's right. I mean, if you want to eat, whatever, and it doesn't take into impact, as we say, the hormones. And I think our audience who are listening to us understand that. So, Steve, just recapping on calories. Restriction of calories, intermittent fasting is good. Replace the calories where you possibly can. So, for a start, 2,500 for a male, 2,200 for a female.
Average,
Reduce that on average. And again, these are just statistical norms. And again, I appreciate Steve, and I'd like to dive into this a little bit more. You've got to look at your metabolic rate, so your metabolism. You've got to look at your body shape, whether you're a metamorph, ectomorph, endomorph. You've got to look at your workload. You've got to look at your age. Are you an active person or inactive? Because all these things, this is where we have that broad stroke. But 2,500 calories, 20% less is a good way to eat. So what's that, Steve? That's taking it down.
Well, that's about 500 calories.
Yeah, about down to about 2,000 roughly. With the calories that are left over, make better choices. So higher protein content, which again we know, high fibre, so leafy greens,
which are no calories,
restricting refined sugars, certainly getting rid of non-natural, non-nutritive sweeteners, things like ACE, and that, because we know that has an impact. And that's again these anomalies. Well, no calories, so therefore it's fine. No, that's a if it fits your macros. Again, this is why we're against if it fits your macros. We like the philosophy, but make it fit your macros. So have good things like again, natural non-nutritive sweeteners are way better. So you utilise those as well too. Keeps your calories down, but also they have the benefits of the polyphenols and the other things as well too.
Yeah, I know. And
so incorporating again ketogenic diets could be something you may be interested in doing as well too. Steve, we didn't talk about water, but I mean, again, in terms of the dehydration and the impact that can have as well too on your metabolic rate and on how many calories you burn.
Yep.
Because if you restrict calories and burn more calories, that's the goal. So, Steve, there's a few things there to unpack, and again, we're looking at cheating, utilising supplementation, incorporating exercise, time of day. So there's a lot of things here, and people. I don't want people to come away and go, "Oh, I'm still confused." We are going to put this together for you.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in this, we're going to put this all together with our band of merry men and women.
Yes.
Our experts.
Yep.
Our advisory panel.
Yep.
To actually help create this into a practical solution. But if people can follow this through, change out some of those things that they're doing by incorporating more protein, more fiber, removing those refined sugars. Intermittent fasting is good. Incorporating more healthy fats in some of those calories, which give you that satiety. I think you're going a long way, Steve.
Even just increasing protein, you'll feel fuller longer, and you'll probably typically eat less calories without trying.
Yeah.
So think about those sorts of things.
Do you know what the average consumption of protein is per day, Steve, from the average person?
Not really. It'll be, I mean, having a guess, it's about 30% of your calories. A third of that tends to be about 600 calories, 150 grams of protein a day.
You reckon? I don't reckon. Oh, maybe. So
for a male?
For a male, which probably most men, if they're having a steak, for example, they're probably having 200 grams of steak, which is probably, if you look
40
at it,
grams of protein.
Where do most people get their protein? They get cereal for breakfast. They get mainly cereal and carbohydrates for lunch. They might get a little bit. They get a little bit of protein then, and they get a little bit at night.
Oh, good eaters or bad eaters?
I'm talking bad eaters. I'm talking the average eater.
Yeah, less than 100.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, I thought you meant what we want to get.
No. Well, no. I mean, I've always gone for 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight as an average, based on your target weight. So if you want to be 100 kilos, 200 grams of protein is a kind of a minimum. If you're overweight and trying to slim down, and your target weight's 80 kilos, for example, then go for 160 grams spread out. Now, of course, you can go a little bit more, but that would be the absolute baseline. Again, very, very rough and ready. This is not. This is not for the people that are measuring everything and using an app. This is just a sort of a rough guide to as a way to start, and then you can refine it. So
absolutely.
All right, Steve. Anything else?
Not really. That's pretty much summary of that. We went through a lot of stuff there, but think ketogenic. If you don't want to go on a ketogenic diet, then go for a run in the morning. That'll bring ketones up.
Yeah,
so sort of cheat your way through it. Like try and not cheat by eating bad food, but cheat by trying to make life easier for you and fit it in with your life, because this is a lot of information, a lot of tough stuff. You may not want to feel hungry all the time. Eat more protein, exercise more.
That and again, peppermint and oil as well too that you can use in between meals. A lot of people use that and find that their calorie restriction significantly improves when using that peppermint and oil together. CLA, those healthy fats that actually promote fat loss can be an absolute game changer, especially where you've got an imbalance of gut bugs, and where your body naturally is craving sugars and sweets and cakes and pastries and all those sorts of things, because people do crave them. You can use aids like that to help you. Drinking plenty of water, upping your fiber. These things are absolutely lifesavers.
Yes.
Because it's not about you just going, right, my will is I am going to not do this. And it's like, forget it. You're going to need support. You're going to need to change the way that you eat and the way that you think about food.
Absolutely. But make changes.
Yep.
That's what you got to start with. Start with small ones.
Yep.
Start with eating more protein.
Yep.
As simple as that.
Yep. Cool.
All right.
And Rome wasn't built in a day, as they say, so one step at a time. And as they say, trust the plan. Create a plan and then follow the plan and trust the plan.
Yes.
So this won't happen overnight, but it will happen. Yeah, so... Yeah.
I remember that ad.
Yeah, Rachel. I love her.
Oh, Rachel.
Rachel. Was that Rachel Hunter? Yeah.
Yeah, Rachel Hunter.
Here we go. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Steve.
All right.
Anything else?
No, that's about it.
All right, mate.
Let's go with it.
And we'll be back next week with some more.
Yep. See you next week.
Thanks for watching. Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye. Bye.
All right.
We ready to go? We ready to rock and roll all night?
And party every day.
There you go.
We got it out of the system.
Yeah.
Love Kiss.
Love Kiss?
Yeah. No, I love Kiss, the band.
Oh. Like, okay. Well, Steve is, and he's kind of making these weird goo-goo eyes at me.
I was dying to meet a girl called Shandy one day, just so I could play Shandy to her.
Shandy.
Tonight must last us forever.
What was Matt's one? Wanted to meet a girl called Eileen.
Oh. Dexy Midnight Runners. You're not recording. Oh, you are recording it.
Can you hear Biscuit on this?
Oh,
it's a shame.
Right, just for those who are listening, we can hear a dog barking in the background.
Yeah, that's Biscuit, Steve.
Oh, God, I'm so politically incorrect these
just
days.
Terrible. You know what? Like, the end's got to come soon, right? Like, seriously, we're nearly there.
Where's the asteroid? Where's that asteroid?
Wormwood. It's on its way.
It's on its way.
Not much longer now, Steve. That's the good news.
I know. It's good for your health.
Do you see what I have to put up with?
Yes.